When Google went from the original Pixel Fold to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, they changed a whole heck of a lot about the device. Not all of it was stuff that I am fully on board for. A lot of it is, though. A lot of it is really, really good. I was actually looking at this original Pixel Fold yesterday. I was getting things kind of updated in preparation for the Android 15 launch, which may have already happened by the time you're seeing this video. And I was just kind of taken aback by how different this device feels than the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. And that reminded me of an article that Google posted all the way back in September, how we redesigned the Pixel 9 Pro Fold and made it thinner. And I thought it would be fun to just sort of go through this article and pull out a few really interesting tidbits. One specific thing that's at the end of this article I think is really interesting, and there was like some controversy on it, something I mentioned in some earlier videos, and people got upset with me, told me that I was wrong, and I had to point them to this article and say, no, I am not wrong, I am correct. So let's just go through this article, and I'm going to pull out things I think are interesting. The first thing I say is it's been fully redesigned and upgraded from the original Pixel Fold, and I think that that's absolutely clear. Like I just said, there are so many things that are different, from the camera to the aspect ratio to the hinge to the thickness, on and on. This is a radically different and, yeah, fully redesigned device. Now, the original Pixel Fold is not a thick device by any stretch of the imagination, but the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is even thinner. As they say here, it is 1.5 millimeters thinner than its predecessor and only 2 millimeters thicker than the Pixel 9 series phone, and that's when it's actually fully closed. I have a case on mine at this moment, so it looks a little bit thicker than that, but this is a very, very thin device. And when you compare it to the contemporaries that are available in North America, devices like the Galaxy Z Fold 6 or the OnePlus Open, it is remarkably thin. They also mentioned that it has the largest display for any smartphone on the market, and I have the number 2 here, which tells you among foldable phones in the US based on the inner display. You always have to look at that fine print. But yeah, for sure, this thing has an absolutely gargantuan inner display. And even though I don't love the aspect ratio, I wish it had the same wider than it is tall aspect ratio that we had on the original Pixel Fold. I will admit that I do really enjoy just how ridiculously big this screen is. I think this next part is really interesting too. Designing a phone and then a foldable. This sort of implies that with the original Pixel Fold, they did things the other way around. They designed a tablet and then they designed a phone, would maybe be a way to put it, which is why we have a more standard tablet style aspect ratio, which I really like. And then that means that when you close it, you end up with this sort of shorter, wider cover display, which, again, I absolutely adore, but it is different from a normal phone. With the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, it does seem quite clear that they designed a normal phone first and then said, well, okay, now it opens, and what would that screen just be based on what the screen on the outside is, right? So it's a normal phone screen. It is just the Pixel 9 screen. Then it opens, so you just double it up. That is sort of the philosophical stance of this phone. It is a phone and then a foldable. This portion here, we saw that people were often using it closed, referring to the original Pixel Fold. That's what led us to say, hey, we need to make this a phone first in terms of design. Our mantra became phone first. And that's interesting to me because I think a lot of people said that they were using this closed a lot of the time because they really enjoyed this cover display. They enjoyed how one-handable it was. It's basically a miniature flagship without the sacrifices of a miniature flagship, because if you want a bigger screen, you've got a bigger screen. To me, this was one of the strongest things about this device. And comment section, guys, we talked about it for the entire life of this device, how that was one of the best things about it. They took that as an indication that they should change things. Whether or not that was the right call, I feel like still kind of remains to be seen, as we don't really know what the sales total for this device is for the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, but that is interesting that that's kind of the impetus for the change. They talk about designing an all-new Hinge, and that is definitely the case. They say that they tried to make it feel similar to the old Hinge on the Pixel 9 Fold, the original, but I do think that it does end up feeling fairly different from the Hinge on the old device. But of course, the biggest differences, they actually do mention here that it folds fully flat with a satisfying snap. That was one of the biggest complaints about the original, was that, as you can maybe see here, you kind of had to give it a little bit more pressure to get it to a fully flat stance. Whereas the new phone is kind of like the OnePlus Open in that once it gets so far, it sort of just snaps the rest of the way open, and it does seem to be very, very happy to fold completely flat. And that is something that I think that they understood they needed to address with this phone, and they absolutely did that. Of course, it's still able to be in many different postures as well. It is more than stiff enough to be kind of wherever you want it to be. So I think it's a very solid Hinge. The cameras, they say creating a better camera with less space. Now, guys, this is one of these things that I was honestly shocked about. When we first heard what the specs of the Pixel 9 Pro Fold camera system was, I think a lot of us were really disappointed and honestly concerned because it seemed like a downgrade. Our primary sensor was staying the same, the telephoto was staying the same, but some other sensors were newer, that's newer hardware, but they were smaller sensors. So I told you guys, probably expect this thing to be very much the same as the original, but somehow, once I got the thing in my hand and actually started comparing it to the original Fold, I realized the camera performance is better. It performs noticeably better in low light with the same sensor. The 5x telephoto zoom is resolving more detail with the same sensor. Whatever software magic they're performing is absolutely working, and they were somehow able to create a better camera in a thinner device. Now, they did have to abandon the visor look on the back of the device, and that was a size constraint type thing, which I dislike. I think that this is a far better looking phone. I have a skin from Soapy Guard on mine right now, waiting for my leather D-brand skin to ship that I ordered in August the 15th, D-brand. It's been 2 months, ship my skin. I think it's a better looking device. I don't love the camera bump on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, but the camera performance is better than expected, and that is worth noting. And then, of course, we got all the camera features of the other Pixel devices as well. Some features that are missing on the original are present on the 9 Pro Fold. Things like Best Take, things like Add Me. All of those features are there, and that is really, really cool. Now, the last thing is the thing I mentioned that people told me I was wrong about, that I was absolutely not wrong about. They say that they've overcome the thermal limitations of this thinner device by re-engineering the thermal architecture with an all-new vapor chamber and graphite thermal spreader. So the original Pixel Fold was not great on thermals. The Tensor G2 runs a little bit warm, and just the fact that this thing is a foldable, it's thinner, foldables just get hotter. But with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, despite the fact that it is even thinner, I have noticed that this thing runs noticeably cooler. Even when charging at full speed, which it can do for much longer, it just doesn't get hot. It's kind of remarkable how well it handles those thermals for being as thin as it is, and that is because they took that very seriously. And there is a vapor chamber, there is a graphite thermal spreader, and that is making a really big difference. Overall, even though I don't love, again, like I said, all the changes about the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, I think that I have to admit that it is a radically improved device. It is a faster and smoother device. It charges faster. The screens are better. They're so much brighter. I wish that we kept the aspect ratio, but man, they are much brighter. They're very, very solid screens. It stays cooler. The camera performance is better. It is One of the bigger generational leaps we've seen in a long time. In the era of phones barely changing year over year, Google bucks that trend and has a gigantic leap from Pixel Fold to Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below, these changes. What else have you noticed? What really stands out to you about the Pixel 9 Pro Fold? I'd love to hear about it in those comments. Thanks for watching. Did I already say that? Maybe I did. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.